Hello, everyone. So, this is the first live stream from my channel. I hope that you are doing well. If you are out there, whoever you may be, today is just an opportunity to share some insights from the Global Values Report. So, around the time that I launched my book, Start with Values, which was released in January 2025, I decided to upgrade the values assessment. The values assessment is a simple tool. I had created various iterations of it over the years. The purpose was very much to help people gain clarity around their values. I suppose stepping back a little bit, why values? I was interested in what makes us human, what drives decision making, what it is in the moment that determines what we do or don't do. And now, many years later, I have a deeper understanding of the brain as a prediction engine and how values can actually shape our predictions as a kind of prior. We can talk about that another time. But at the time, I realized that what we care about shapes our decisions, shapes our stress levels, shapes whether we find a challenge energizing or exhausting. So I decided to research this idea of values. Now, I never intended to become the values guy. It was just an area that kind of resonated with me, having been deeply involved in positive psychology and resilience. I spent over a decade with the Resilience Institute running resilience training programs and designing tools and technologies that help people to understand what resilience means, understand their own strengths and risks, understand how they can close the gap between where they're going, what's causing them stress, and how to actually get to that destination in one piece. Not always easy in a world where the goalposts are constantly shifting. Things are not stationary. We are living in a time where change is constant. There's a kind of perma-crisis, and the only thing we can do is either adapt or numb ourselves, find ways to seek out comfort and stability amidst all of this noise. Anyway, during my time with the Resilience Institute, and actually before, I spent almost a decade working with an organization called Life by Design in Australia. I came to realize that if we can get clear on what matters, we can craft a life around that. And of course, there's the pushback. Well, how can I live a life of kindness if I'm under pressure, I'm in a job that I don't enjoy? There are demands, I have to pay the bills. But as I explored further, I realized that yes, there is this very real conflict between what we value and the reality of our lives. But could we use the value as a lens through which we observe our challenges, the events, the things beyond our control, at least in the immediate term? And it turns out yes. So even if I'm overloaded, can I shift how I'm reacting? Can I respond more effectively and engage one of my values as a way to make sense of the situation, to shift how I'm reacting, to downregulate my nervous system and give myself another opportunity? Because, of course, at any point in life, I can be angry, I can be resentful, I can feel frustrated, I can find the situation overwhelming. I might even find myself in a state of freeze, procrastination. I don't even know where to focus my attention. That's normal, it's natural. You've probably heard about fight, flight, freeze responses as per polyvagal theory. So when confronted by a stressor or a threat in the environment, it's natural for the nervous system to shift into survival mode. It might say, okay, the safest thing I can do right now in order to increase the likelihood of survival is to flee, get away from that stressor. How does that work out when the stressor is an inbox full of emails and a performance review? Yeah. Or the nervous system says, we can't escape, let's fight back. Well, what does that result in? It results in outbursts. It results in temper tantrums. It results in polarization. It results in loud noises on the internet. People, basically shouting at each other online in ways that they would never do face to face. And what else? We might find ourselves in that freeze response. I actually don't know what to do. Pretty useful if you're walking across the savannah and you find yourself in a pride of lions. You stumble into a pride of lions. Well, running might not be a good idea. We all know what cats do with their food. They play with it. If you try and fight the lions, probably not a good idea either. But lying down on the grass, it's probably not a good idea either. But it may increase your likelihood of survival. What would you do in that situation? You're wandering across the savannah, and this happened to many explorers. Think about those first British or Dutch explorers. Of course, the native Africans would have had more experience when confronting a pride of lions. But for that first British explorer, hops off a ship, all right, new lands, let's go and see what we can find. And maybe they've heard tales of Australia. There's lots of snakes. They've heard about the arrival into New Zealand. Of course, there's a native population here as well. And they start trudging through the bush. The bush in South Africa is pretty dense. If any of you have ever been there, it's not like trekking through a forest in Europe, one of those primeval forests with those big trees and just a light layer of leaves over the soil, or a redwood forest in the US. It's thick, it's dense, there is wildlife, there are birds flying overhead screeching, warning other creatures that you or some other predator is nearby. There are snakes everywhere. I've been bitten by snakes multiple times. There are monkeys, and of course there are bigger creatures. You get to that river, the water's flowing, you look around, this looks safe. You look at your friend, he says, I'll go first to test the depth. Oh, well, he gets about 5 steps into the river and a crocodile has eaten him. And that's the end of Bob. And you decide to go and a hippo eats you, and that's the end of Jack. And no one lives to tell the tale. And the next set of explorers arrive and the same happens to them. You've just been on a 6-month voyage across the Atlantic and ocean, around the Cape Horn, around to perhaps Durban, where I grew up, and within minutes you're food for the wildlife. But anyway, it makes you think, we have these nervous systems that have evolved to help us deal with real threats. And now, in a time of comfort and stability, our nervous system is reacting or responding to things that are not life-threatening. Our nervous system, which collects inputs via our sensory surfaces, so our vision, our taste, touch, what we hear, what we see, what we read. Information is consumption, and it shapes our perception of the world. And that all leads to both interoception, the feeling of what's going on inside, and exteroception, what's going on outside. This is passed to the brain, the predictive engine, which then starts to run probabilities, and it weights them. It It's a kind of precision weighting system. So if the highest likelihood of success is to sacrifice my well-being, or let's say the highest likelihood of survival is to sacrifice my well-being and work late into the night, I will do that because it reduces the chance of a conflict with my boss. Let's just say, as one example. However, if my values are clear as a prior that shapes the prediction, I might know that another late night is going to result in me being completely depleted tomorrow, which means I won't be able to function and achieve that goal, which will upset the CEO even more. Or I might realize that I won't have bedtime stories with my daughter. And if that happens enough times, I start to become seriously resentful of the situation. I might burn out, or I might find myself, basically just quitting, whether quiet quitting or loud quitting. So it's a long way of saying that values are always there. If you experience stress of some sort, I can guarantee you that a value is either activated or it's being violated. There are many studies that show that stress can be enhancing. I'm sure some of you have heard of them. Professor Alia Crum talks about the stress is enhancing mindset, or the stress is debilitating mindset. So if I believe the stress is good for me, it can actually elevate my performance. It can be quite good for me. If I believe that the stress is detrimental, it's worse for me. There was a study at UBS, a bank in Switzerland, where they showed exactly this by showing videos to 3 groups of employees. And they found that the group who was shown content that said stress is good for you, they improved across a whole lot of markers, including physiological, greater engagement, the ability to regulate stress, and so forth. Our beliefs matter, and our beliefs are partly shaped by what we value. It's interesting that you can have different beliefs about the same value. Think of this. Some people might believe that in order to value my health, I need to eat quality, unprocessed food, exercise, stretch regularly, get some sunshine. Other people who value health might think, well, the pathway to health is to ensure that I've got a good doctor, good health insurance, I'm on the right medication, and that I regularly have checkups. 2 people valuing the same thing, but very different beliefs about how to achieve it. Okay, so back to the Values Global report. I released the upgraded assessment shortly after my book Start With Values was released in 2025. And I've continued to evolve the assessment technology because if someone becomes clear about their values, they can make better decisions. Those values can become embedded as a prior, as it's called, as something that shapes the predictive brain. And the more clear we get about our values, the better or more aligned the predictions can become. It's a process, right? But people used it, and I added a basic well-being survey to the tool so that we could analyze, well, how stressed are people? How aligned are people with their values? What are some patterns that we can discover? Let's share some of the results. Okay, you can see on the screen, that is the report. It's available on the Values Institute website, so just values.institute, click the research tab, and I'll walk you through some of the findings. So, starting from the top, when people are asked to reflect, they are remarkably consistent in what they identify as important. If you step back, I've heard studies saying that the number one value or the number one aspiration for young people today is to be an influencer, right? I say this recognizing the irony. I'm streaming live on YouTube. I'm not sure that I want to be an influencer, but you know, in that realm, right? And I was surprised to discover that values around wealth and status and influence were exceptionally low in the study. In fact, the things that people actually value across the world are: number one, family; number two, respect; three, kindness; four, empathy; five, honesty; six, fairness; then learning, love, curiosity, friendship. Isn't that interesting? That almost 10,000 people from 114 countries, they value the simplest things, the most human things, the most social things. It's relational, it's moral, it's I value my family. It's I value respecting each other beyond my family. I respect others. It's kindness, actually caring about others. It's empathy. Again, it's being able to see the world from someone else's perspective. And it's honesty. It's telling the truth. This is not what we see in the news or on social media for that matter. Now, granted, these are people who decided to use a values survey. Are they all lovey-dovey, let's make the world a better place kind of people? Possibly, to some extent, although many are individuals changing career, they're going through some sort of life transition, maybe they're just on a journey of self-development. Many are optimizing themselves, trying to find ways to improve their performance, and they use a tool like this to get clear. Some might be more activist types who, really care about social connection. Anyway, for future studies, it would be interesting to perhaps ask, what kind of job do you have? Maybe a little bit more demographic information. But it's still one of the largest surveys of its type that has been run across the world. And what we value is so consistent, whether you're in Bangladesh or Iran or US, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, we care about our families. And this is across all generations. In fact, there's a really surprising finding, which is that Gen Z, the younger generation, value family more than any other generation. People say, oh, they're disconnected, they're anxious, they're whatever. No, they actually really value us, their families. Respect, kindness, empathy, honesty. Interesting, right? Okay, so let's keep having a look through the report. Wealth is valued at around 4.9%. Interesting. So fewer than 5% of people place wealth or status in their top 5 values. Interesting. Status is at 0.8%. Visibility, 1%. Authority, that's really low compared to what you might think, considering we live in the attention economy. And here's the finding that I think is fascinating. Gen Z values family more than anyone. 43% have family in their top 5. Then 25 to 34-year-olds, a little less family focused. You're out there, you're having fun. Maybe this is the stage in life when we're just starting to consider getting married. People are getting married later, coupling. Then family becomes gradually more important, and then it dips off for the 55-plus-year-olds. Why? I don't know. Maybe they're on a cruise. They're spending the retirement fund. Okay, so let's keep going. So this is where I think the fact that I added a well-being type tool to the survey makes a huge difference, because without it, we wouldn't know how people are actually doing, because it's fine. It's great to value family. It's great to value respect. It's fantastic to value kindness. But what if I can't live those values? That increases my overall level of distress. If I'm consciously saying, I value my family, but I can't be with them because I have to work. I value respect, but I'm so burnt out that all I can do is defend myself. I'm in fight mode. I don't respect anyone. I'm just surviving. Or I am so sleep deprived that kindness is a distant dream. I'm not even kind to myself, right? So being able to live in alignment with our values is the critical enabler. If I don't have the energy, the resources, the willpower, well, what's going to happen is that I actually might feel worse off than I did before. Maybe values clarity makes life worse if I can't live in alignment. Maybe it's better just to be ignorant. So, among the respondents who completed the well-being assessment, rest and presence are the two lowest scoring dimensions. By contrast, the highest scoring dimensions are empathy and support. So people are quite skilled at caring for others, but they're less skilled at sustaining themselves. 40% are exhausted. Whoa. This is of people who include family in their top 5. 49% are disconnected from the present moment. 25% are both exhausted and disconnected simultaneously. I don't know about you. I've got a daughter, and there have been times when I was so tired by the end of the day that I fell asleep during bedtime stories. Has that ever happened to anyone out there? It's not good. It's not good. It's not good hearing your daughter saying, "Daddy, Daddy, Mommy, Daddy fell asleep." And then trouble ensues. But it's happened. And the reason was that I was exhausted. I was frying myself. Late night meetings, early morning starts, driving all over the country, racing back. It was not good at all. And I valued my daughter more than anything, and I wasn't there. And what we forget sometimes is that we'll never get that opportunity again. I'll never get to spend bedtime stories with the 3-year-old version of my daughter ever again. That's gone. And it does go pretty fast. And I think we should all be aware of that, because you get opportunities in your life and we squander them. And it's later on that we look back and say, I would give anything to have one more day as a 30-year-old or as a 35-year-old. Look at how wonderful I was. Look at how youthful I was. When I was 35, I'm looking at myself going, I'm an absolute mess. I hate myself. Oh my God, my life is a disaster. When I'm 40, oh my God, how can I do this? It's just a nightmare. Look at the bags under my eyes. And when you're 48 or when you're 58, you look back and go, wow, you should have enjoyed your body. You should have enjoyed that shell when it was so youthful and regenerative. But we don't know that, and no one tells us that. Although there are quite a few posts on social media, maybe it's because of my age, where you see, what I would give to live one day in my 35-year-old body. But if you're at that age, honestly, no one told me to enjoy your youth, but enjoy your youth. You are as beautiful and as youthful, and ready as you'll ever be. And it will be good. You're going to have a wonderful life. Lots of wonderful experiences. But don't hate yourself. Don't beat yourself up. And I think your values can really help with that kind of self-talk, especially the negative self-talk. There's a narrator in each one of our heads. And it's part of that predictive brain. It's telling us the story. It's trying to make meaning of what happens. And it's the one that says, hey, Brad, oh my God, the situation's going to go badly before it's even happened. Don't walk into that room. You're going to be judged. People are not going to like you. Look at the state of your shirt. It's all wrinkled. Look at your hair. It's a mess. It was windy outside. Is there a bathroom? Anything except for the fact that there's this wonderful opportunity coming up to connect with people who really don't care. And if they do care, well, other people's thoughts of you is just electrical activity in their brain. It's not the universe judging you. It's not the end of the world. But I think what you'll realize, where did I see it recently? I think it was the UFC fighter Ilia Topuria, who said in an interview, he always remembers the 18-40-60 rule. At 18, you think everyone's thinking about you. At 40, you realize that what you think of yourself matters more. And at 60, you realize that no one ever cared anyway. Something along those lines. I butchered it. But it's true, you know. It may not feel good wherever you are right now. Or maybe it feels amazing. If it does, savor it. Claim those moments. Name them. I am feeling so energized today. I am feeling so grateful today. We'll get to gratitude in a minute. Because that amplifies that emotional state. Savor it. And the same for negative emotional states. Acknowledge them. Oh, I'm feeling frustrated because of this situation. By naming it, naming the state, well, it's almost like, imagine your emotions are like monsters in the darkness. And by shining a light on them, you reveal that it's just that t-shirt hanging on your wardrobe. It's not a monster. Oh, it's just that t-shirt. That's okay. Everything's going to be fine. There's anger seething under your bed. It's a monster. Just shine the light underneath and you see, oh, it's just those old boxes with some photographs in them. Oh, that's all it is. Okay, good. Let's move on. Of course, there is a time for those signals to be very important to shape our behavior. But much of the time, I find them to be tools that drag us out of the present moment. They cloud. They're lenses that distort reality. We're all walking around in our own personal realities. You could call it a controlled hallucination, in the words of Andy Clark, the philosopher. We're all walking around in controlled hallucinations, and reality, or at least consensus reality, is when our hallucinations overlap, when we agree on them and say, yeah, this is real. So how are you shaping that controlled hallucination? And this is where values come in. I genuinely believe it. If I can say, I've had a stressful week, why? Look back. What made that week stressful? Oh, there were never-ending meetings. Good. Were any of your values of creativity, kindness, and play engaged this week? No, actually, not at all. It was admin. That's your stress. Can you spend 2 hours on the weekend doing something creative? Go collect some shells and crush them up and make a painting. Glue them onto a canvas. something I'm thinking of doing. In New Zealand, we have these shells called power shells, P-A-U-A, and they've got this beautiful blue, shiny interior. And I'm thinking that a wave painting. So what I'm thinking is crushing up a few of those shells, gluing them onto a canvas, crushing up some white shells to make the white of the wave. And yeah, let's see. My artworks have a tendency to become kids' finger paintings. But you can tell already that fire has been ignited. I'm excited about the opportunity to go and do something creative. And what does that do to this feeling of fatigue, that grimy feeling of stress from the week? It evaporates. It's like you're driving through fog and the sun emerges between clouds and that fog just starts to dissipate and the road clears. It's all we need, right? Life is just a series of experiences. And we sometimes think or presume that the next experience will be exactly like the last. That's the predictive brain. It makes predictions based on what happened before and the sensory inputs arriving through our body, our sensory surfaces, and based on beliefs and values, if we're clear about them. So the future, in fact, even if it's bad, the prediction is saying, well, at least that ensures survival. That's all the brain is trying to do, is ensure survival. So it will predict an action based on what has happened in the past and filtered in and shaped by sensory inputs. And so if you keep doing the same thing over and over and wondering why you're not getting a different result, it's often as a result of that. Okay, so what else can we learn about values? We are, as a society, exhausted, we're distracted, we're disconnected, and we're feeling rather stretched. 1 in 4 people who say family is what matters most are too depleted to show up fully, and they're not present. I've been there myself, no judgment. Women are carrying a disproportionate burden. This is quite alarming. So women score lower on vitality, on fitness, on rest, presence, clarity, focus, positivity, and they score higher, marginally higher, on support and empathy. So they are carrying the burden of relationships, family perhaps, being the glue at work. I don't know about you, but in my experience, it's often women who work in human resources. What a horrible name for a function at work. Resources. People are just resources to be mined, extracted from. People and culture sounds better. And often, in my experience, I work with many companies, right? Companies pay me to come and run workshops. And I'm dealing often with an L&D or a HR or people and culture representative from the company. And they carry a real burden. They really care about others' well-being, and yet they're the ones being asked to fire and hire and have those tough conversations and be a mental health guide and deal with conflict situations and harassment and abuse, and health and safety sometimes gets bundled in. It's a lot. And they do an amazing job. But they're exhausted. Let's continue. 35 to 44-year-old women are most affected group. 28% report high stress. 24% severely exhausted. Wow, it's a real challenge. Okay, so let's take a look at purpose. Now, purpose is an interesting one. Someone asked me recently, Brad, what is purpose? And purpose is a sense of moving in a forward direction towards something that's often greater than ourselves. I don't know. That's the clearest definition I can come up with. And it's a North Star in a way. But as I heard a monk say, purpose is extrinsic. It is desire. And desire creates suffering because we don't have it yet. But I would never say don't have a sense of purpose. Have that big goal. Have your North Star. Even if your purpose is just to help others. It doesn't have to be grandiose. It's like the emergency room nurse who says, I'm so burnt out because all I do is deal with the never-ending stream of other people's distress, and their families are the most stressful part of it, to discovering or rediscovering, I am with people in their darkest moments. That's purpose. All of that stress dissolved, the sunlight comes through. So purpose is a real buffer to stress, and the data is pretty clear that people who have a sense of purpose are less stressed, up to 25% less stressed, and fulfillment more than doubles. So you can find purpose in what you already do, right? You don't need anything grandiose. You don't have to come up with some kind of major life goal. It can be, instead of saying, I'm torn apart every day in a million different directions by my team, that's what a leader once said, to saying, I'm privileged to help my teams solve complex challenges. Same situation, nothing changes, it's just my purpose has changed. And if you can make it slightly intrinsic, that you've got control over it, even better. Another really interesting finding was around gratitude. Now, I've been a fan of gratitude as a concept. Well, how can you be a fan of gratitude? But you know what I mean. I have believed in much of the research around gratitude, saying that it supports better sleep. It's good for us. It shifts you from sympathetic or fight, flight, freeze into parasympathetic. And the data in the values report shows that valuing gratitude correlates with higher well-being. People who value gratitude in their top 5 score higher on every single well-being dimension. Isn't that amazing? So I value being thankful for whatever, the world, being alive, my next breath, 3 things that went well each day. And overall, my well-being improves. So positivity, rest, connection. I practice every day before bed. I just lie down and I think, so in bed, not before bed, and think of 3 things that went well that day. And I find it to be perhaps one of the most powerful practices in the toolkit. I often fall asleep before I've even identified the 3rd one. It takes practice. What else? So gratitude. How do you do it? Gratitude, well, 3 things that went well. They call it 3 blessings or gratitude journal. Both great tools. And finally, the fairness paradox. People who value fairness tended to be more stressed. That is interesting because I suppose if you're carrying the weight of the world's problems, requiring, really fighting for fairness, caring about all of the things that are not fair, and remember, we're exposed to more information than ever before, so there are more reasons to find unfairness in the world, we feel more stressed. So it's important to have some practices that enable you to downregulate, that enable you to be present. I don't think it's bad to value fairness, but I think that fairness without recovery is a recipe for disaster. And I've worked with some large NGOs, global NGOs, where I discovered exactly that. Employees within those organizations, purpose-driven, organizational purpose, wanting fairness, wanting equality, but unable to recover. And they were drained and angry. Okay, maybe that's enough for this little session. I will finish up now. If you enjoyed it, let me know. And perhaps see you on another one of these in the near future. Take care.